Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 2 of Ultimate Exotics, the review series for the supercars of Gran Turismo 6. Now in the supercar world, it really helps to have something that sets your car apart from the crowd, because if you don't, it can kind of get lost in the mosh of supercars, because there are many to choose from, and it is a fiercely competitive category. Now, the SLR was released in a time when the supercar world was really starting to boom. There have been supercars for a long time, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that many more companies started to jump on the bandwagon. You had cars like the SLR, the Carrera GT, the Gumper Apollo, the Saleen S7, the Veyron, Koenigsegg, etc. All were released to the masses at around the same time. So against that kind of opposition, how does the SLR fare? Because at the end of the day, it is quite a heavy car. And even on the game, it is very, very expensive. It's just under 600 grand for this particular model. Now, there are two models on the game. There's a non-premium and a premium version. This is the premium version here, the 2009 SLR, which is the one of the two I would recommend. It has the better graphics, the fully detailed interior, and slightly more power. Now, speaking of power, this SLR is of course front-engined, which is relatively rare in the supercar world. Most are predominantly mid-engined. And the engine in question is a 5.4 litre supercharged V8. Now, this engine is an extremely strong motor. It's the exact same capacity, size and aspiration as the Ford GT, which is interesting, but it produces more power and torque than the Ford GT. To be exact, 1005 horsepower and 897 pound-feet of torque, which is a huge amount of torque. But as we said, the SLR is a pretty heavy supercar. In its day, it was pretty much the second heaviest thing, only to the Veyron. But on the game, with the full weight loss package, it's actually a lot lighter than you'd expect. It actually weighs 1,311 kilos, so it is a remarkably lightweight car. And thanks to this, combined with its huge power output, it actually has a very, very impressive power-to-weight ratio of 767 horsepower per tonne, which is extremely impressive. But the gearbox could possibly let down all that power and torque, because it's only a 5-speed, as many of the high-end Mercedes models were back then, and it's an automatic. Now, obviously, being an automatic doesn't matter so much on the game, because you can select whether you want to use manual or not. But in real life, that could have been a bad thing in a time when many supercars were going to DSG boxes and many were still manual. But that didn't let the SLR down at all. In real life, it's an extremely fast machine, even by the latest of supercar standards. And on the game, it's no different. It is among the quickest and most competitive of supercars in the game. Acceleration is to rival any of the other supercars, and the top-end performance is around the 290 mph region, even without NOS or draft. And I have to say, despite what you may think about the SLR, it's actually an excellent track car. Now, in real life, the SLR was sometimes knocked by some testers for its brakes, which are, although very powerful, lacking in feel, according to some road testers. And basically what that means, for those who are unfamiliar with the term, is that the car does slow down, but the brakes don't feel like they're really slowing the car down in time. And the problem with that is, although you do stop in time for the corners, because you've mentally prepared yourself to crash, you've now lost the flow that you need to have to get around said corner as quickly as possible. Now, on the game, this just doesn't happen. The brakes are very, very good. The handling is, as you'd expect from a Mercedes, very smooth, very composed, and very predictable, really. It doesn't really surprise you, which is a good thing. and it can give you extremely fast laps, even laps that are bordering on race car fast. Now, the one thing that I will point out that you need to bear in mind about the SLR, and really it's its only potential downside, is its suspension. The suspension on the SLR is quite temperamental, and depending on how you set it up, it does completely change the characteristics of how the car performs, both at low and high speeds. And leading on from that, that is another issue that can occur. At extremely high speeds, such as on tracks like Special Stage Route X, the high-speed handling becomes extremely stiff, and that is something to bear in mind, depending on what track you plan on using it on. But overall, the SLR is an incredibly good machine. It's among the quickest of supercars in a straight line, among the quickest around the track, and it's just a classy car. Personally, I've always loved the SLR McLaren. I think it's a great looking car. Yeah, it's expensive at just under 600,000 credits, but so are many other supercars. And this car is one of the best all-round supercars in the game. There's no doubt about that. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, thanks for watching.